All right. Today is Monday, April 12th. It's just a normal day. Going to bench. End of this week, me and Justin are actually going back home. So we're gonna train at Olympus Gym with some of the friends back from Charlotte, and we've neither of us have trained there before, so that should be a lot of fun. So Justin doesn't lift on Thursdays, but we'll be there Thursday, Friday, and Saturday for our workouts. That's pretty nice. I recorded some of our lifts last week. Well, just mine. I recorded some of my lifts last week. Pretty sure I had a squat single and a deadlift single I filmed. Show those here. In here.
Shit back to back. Okay. I'm making a change today. A little bit taking the pain away. I heard you was giving your chain away. It's kind of like giving your fame away. What's wrong with you? I sit in a box where the owners do. A boss is I love you to death, but I told you the truth.
Yeah, besides that, I'm not sure. You know, I do singles every week, so it's nothing crazy. The weight on deadlifts is going up, so that's good. I think we're gonna break into the 600s for RP7 singles every week pretty soon, probably around May. So, you know, this deadlift journey is just starting, but yeah, so just grinding, hitting this volume hard. I don't know if we've mentioned on here when we're competing again. So we're both competing on November 6th, I think the date is. It's like the 6th or the 7th of November in Virginia. So that meet is already set in stone. Me and Justin are both competing there. So that'll be a lot of fun. We have a lot of work to do before we get to the point where we're ready for that meet. So yeah. So I'm just gonna head to the gym, record some clips of bench real quick. And then we're gonna recap our last meet, which at this point was 3 weeks ago now, just over 3 weeks ago. So yeah, catch y'all there.
I'm always moving too fast and feeling no last. I feel like you take it for granted. Probably my fault for the way that I handled it. I should have put you somewhere I would know to find. Mansion island sticks with nothing around it. Cape to Texas, Dallas to Texas, you know, a different environment. Alright. You got desire. I know.
That's a 7.
Cause you got desires. Got a lot of shit. Got jet lag, cause I'm fly in the bitch. Set me back, got a lot of tricks. Got jet lag, cause I'm fly in the bitch. Set me back, got a lot of shit. Got jet lag, cause I'm fly in the bitch. Set me back, got a lot of tricks. Got jet lag, cause I'm fly in the bitch.
Alright, so we're just gonna be doing a recap of the meet now. I'm gonna talk a little bit about everything but like leading up to the meet once we got to like South Carolina the day before, and then we're gonna talk about our lifts. So first, we get to South Carolina first on Friday around I think like 4 o'clock, and I set the scale down in the bathroom just to like get my weigh in, because I hadn't weighed in since I left like 4 hours before, because we were caught in bad traffic, so it took a while. But I lay down the scale and my batteries are dying, but I didn't know this, so I step on the scale and it read 213. So I wasn't doing it like a traditional like water cut, so there's no way I could have lost 8 pounds in like
20 hours. So I immediately texted my coach about it, all this other stuff, but then I just was like, okay, whatever, I didn't want to accept it because I knew it couldn't have been true, because I weighed in at like 208 right before we left for South Carolina, and I hadn't eaten anything. So I stepped back on the scale, and then it starts like tripping a little bit. So I'm like, oh, so I actually take the batteries out of the remote in like the hotel room and put them in the scale, and then it started getting me an accurate reading again. So I was like 208 around that time. Before I ate my last meal, around like 6, I just had like some Chipotle. And I mean, we were good for meet day. I woke up that morning and I was pretty much fasting the whole day. Our weigh-ins weren't until 1, which is super late. And I mean, I'm sure most of the people watching this know that, but so I was just kind of chewing on some Pringles, or Lay's, potato chips, right? Lay's.
Utz, but I mean chips.
Oh, Utz, whatever, yeah.
Chips.
Just chips. And you know, just because they're high in sodium and they're like the weight of them is actually like really low, like the actual like mass. So obviously wanted to stay below weight. We're not worried about calories that close out to the weigh-in. We're just worried about how much weight we're actually eating. And then I would sip a little bit of water just because I knew I was underweight, but it wasn't enough. And it wasn't like I was frequently peeing anymore because like all the water was out of my system and everything. And also like I wanted to be safe just because I didn't want to have like over weigh in and then I have to keep cutting and then push my warm-ups back. I ended up weighing in around 203, I'm pretty sure. So that went well, wasn't too worried about it, besides that one scare I had the day before. But and then Justin, no, you didn't really even have to cut.
I mean, yeah, my experience wasn't too bad because I competed at 120, 264, and I was hovering around 250 for most of training. 250, 255. So leading up to meet day wasn't a big deal. I didn't go crazy the day before because I guess I was focusing on like GL points and stuff. So I didn't go crazy with like a refeed or anything leading up, and on meet day I weighed in at 250 on the dot, I'm pretty sure. So there were no surprises or anything interesting for me when it came to weight going into the competition.
So we're just gonna get right into squats. The venue actually was super deep. Like it was jam-packed. So just walking around, using the bathrooms, like it was just rough. And warm-ups weren't too bad. You know, everybody's like sharing equipment and everything, so that's not too bad. But so I opened with 457, which is my planned opener. I didn't feel, I mean, squats didn't feel bad. They didn't feel, I guess, great. I mean, they kind of just felt normal. But when I picked the bar up off the rack, it felt extremely heavy on my back. Like I was not expecting the bar to feel that heavy. I train on a power bar and calibrated plates every single day, so I'm used to how it feels. Like it's not like I'm training on like metal plates and different bars and stuff. So there shouldn't have been anything new. I'm not sure why I felt like that. Because this is like a routine single I took during prep, but because of that, it kind of influenced my second and third, because I wasn't really analyzing how fast the reps were, just kind of how they felt. So you'll see that once I get to those reps. But it moved pretty well for an opener. I can't complain. My second attempt was 485. If I remember correctly. This was my third from November, so being able to take this for a second was pretty nice. Like I said, I think I was planning on taking this for a second anyway, but I was slightly conservative after this. So this rep, I mean, also moved really well. You could see that like a sticking point was starting to develop a little bit, but still pretty well. And then my third was 501. So I originally like planned coming into the day that I wanted to hit like 507, maybe even 512. But 507 was like the plan, but I just decided to stick to 501. 16 pounds over what I hit at the last meet 4 months ago. And I mean, it moved pretty well. I mean, I had another 5 keys for sure. So 507 and 512 was definitely there, but I'm not mad. That's gonna be kind of a trend with my lifts from this meet, where I had a little bit more in the tank, but I'm totally fine with that. So
Yeah, and with my lifts, squat had been progressing pretty well throughout prep. The last week of my training, I had my heaviest single of, or second to last week, I had my heaviest single for squats of prep at 595, and it moved a lot slower than I wanted to or expected, but I still had high hopes or expectations for it. And come meet day, I felt really good. My recovery had gone well leading up to the competition, and with my first attempt, I took 245 keys or 540 pounds, and it moved very well. Like, technique was really good, the weight felt good on my back, everything was fine. And so we went with the programmed next attempt at 260 or 573, and that was really similar to like what Jalen said with his first attempt, where the weight just felt really heavy on my back. If I'm not mistaken, I hit the rack, I think, on my unrack on the second.
Dang, I didn't even know that.
Or no, I didn't hit the rack, but when I came out, I stumbled when I stepped backwards and almost lost my balance. So I took like a recovery step before I started my squat, and it just, the rep felt off. It wasn't perfect, and so because of that one and how slow it moved, we adjusted, and that's why I took my third attempt at 267.5 or 590 instead of closer to 595 or 601 like we had planned. And it was a good jump. I don't know if it was due to strength lacking on just the day or if it was because I'd gotten in my head because of the last rep, but it moved fairly slow. Even though the technique was good and it felt good, it moved pretty slow, and because of how grindy the rep was, I kind of got back on my heels a lot during the rep, and so balance was almost lost, but it went pretty well, and it was as good as I could have hoped for or expected going into a first comp with a lift like squat. So yeah.
So going into bench was like the lift I really wanted to execute really well, being this is my first meet with my coach, and I went 8 for 9 at the last meet, and the lift I missed was my third bench, and I feel like that was largely because of not being honest with myself in training, and just having honestly poor form, because I mean, my coach fixed my form, honestly. But I opened the meet with 290, 286, and I mean, it moved really well. I opened the last meet with 281. Like I said, my form is much better. Just off that alone, I think aided in like my bench increases. But wanting to go 3 for 3 on bench kind of held me back on the top end a little bit. And I definitely had another, well, when we get there, we'll talk about it. But 286 moved well. Then we jumped up and I jumped up to 303. This was the third attempt that I missed at the other meet in November. And which actually wasn't even supposed to be the plan. I wanted to do 308 at the last meet, but my second attempt at 297 was terrible, and then I missed 303. So once again, I mean, a routine rep, soft touch, and I blew it up. And the third attempt was 319. It looks better than it felt, I think, honestly. Probably pretty similar. So you can tell it's definitely pretty hard. I know I had another 2.5 on top of that, 2.5 kilos, so to 325. 5 kilos to 330 would have been kind of iffy, but once again, happy that I took it, went 3 for 3 on bench, and just kept it rolling towards deadlifts. So.
And with my bench press, it was lift I was looking forward to the least all prep. I've always had struggles with bench press, whether it be due to chest soreness or shoulder and elbow issues, and I have an extremely long range of motion because I have really long arms, so it wasn't something I was looking forward to. But the last few weeks of training, I started to really iron out my form with my coach, and things started to look up, so I was not extremely excited, I guess, for the bench press, but I was pleased with the progress I'd made and ready to go into the comp. And with my opener, I took 297 or 135 kilos, and it moved super easy. The rep was clean. I think a big thing with me for this comp wasn't necessarily the weight I did with my bench press, but how I was able to understand that my squat form and my squat reps didn't really hurt my bench form. It didn't tire me out or anything like that, so I was able to recover well and stick through the entire meet. And all the reps were pretty clockwork, nothing too exceptional or notable about the reps. You can see, especially with the first one, it was super fast. The second one I took was 315 pounds or 142 and a half keys. And this is another one where my technique was good, my arch was good, and I just really focused on keeping the bar stable, kept the reps clean all the way through, and it worked out well. And I definitely left a lot on the platform, I feel. With my third attempt, I took 147 and a half kilos or 325 pounds, and it moved, I'd say, definitely faster than a typical third attempt for the bench press. But like I said, it was tying my all-time PR, and I didn't want to get too ambitious and miss a lift, especially in the first competition, because I was already in a good spot when it came to placing and things like that. So, and deadlift obviously was the big lift that I was excited for and looking forward to, so I didn't want to do anything to tire myself out too much.
So on the deadlifts and warm-ups, I think it's just largely based on hype, because both of us actually love deadlifting. So when it got to warm-ups, just like that psychological feel, my deadlifts felt like insane. Like, I hate to say it like this because it sounds really weird, but honestly, I remember feeling like my deadlifts felt like numb. Like, I would do the weight and I would just keep going up, and I wouldn't feel it, it wouldn't phase me. It was the craziest thing ever. But I opened with 573, which is 5 pounds over my second attempt from the last meet. So I took slightly smaller jumps this meet. Last meet I jumped like 15 kilos or 33 pounds each attempt. Actually, I did jump 15 kilos between each attempt, and I didn't do that this time. I'm pretty sure I jumped like 12 and a half or 10 on between my attempts, but I mean, 573 looked really good. I mean, it absolutely flew. I'm actually, so me and Will didn't want to change too much before the meet just because it was so close, but I'm fixing my slack pull, because I can see, I mean, I just basically yank at the bar at the bottom, and it doesn't look too bad because, I mean, my setup isn't terrible, but we've definitely been fixing that slack pull, and I'm already seeing results from that. So on my second attempt, I took 601 or 272 and a half, which is the same as my third attempt at the last meet in November. So I took this. I knew if this went fast, I mean, my third was gonna go really well, because I was kind of iffy on what I wanted to do for my third, because my heaviest deadlift in training was supposed to be, I did 606, and it absolutely flew. And it was partly because of hype and everything, the environment, which plays a big factor, and which I already knew this was a big thing for me. It was just the environment and everything, but so I wasn't sure what I had in the tank on meet day, whether that was anywhere from 622 all the way up to 639. But just staying true to how the rest of the meet went, and how I chose my other attempts, I ended up going with 628, which, I mean, is still a 28-pound meet PR, and a 22-pound PR from my heaviest ever, which was in the gym, like I said, my heaviest single of my prep. And I was a little slow off the ground. Lockout was, I mean, it was pretty fluid. Obviously, you could tell the weight was pretty heavy. It was an appropriate third, I think. I wasn't I was trying to pull for glory. I wasn't trying to pull for a win or anything. So I think it was a good third attempt, and I'm overall happy with adding 30 keys to my total from November.
And then for me, really similar to Jalen, deadlifts were feeling great during warm-ups. I think meet day nutrition and hydration, all the things went really well. And so by the time I started warming up, everything felt better than it ever had. So I was planning to pull for a state record in the deadlift for the open and junior class. For the junior class, the record was 677 pounds, which is something I had done before in training, so I knew that I had that. And then the open record was 699 or 700, whatever the kilo number comes out to. And so I knew that I wanted to surpass both of those with my meat lifts. And it was the first time I'd really gone off of my program numbers by my coach, because he actually did a really good job of programming attempts based on where I was at. And I think that all of the attempts were perfect RPE wise, I guess, for the attempt that was taken. But with my opener, I did 285 keys or 628 pounds, which was something I'd done for RPE like 6.5, 7 lifts by the end of my training block. And it moved super fast. It was a solid rep. The technique was there. And so I was pleased with it. And I knew that, like I said, I'd been feeling good for the warm-up, so the other reps were going to go good. A lot of people actually, after the fact and even during, made comments about how big jumps were that we took. But I think it was a good thing, because I knew that the weight was there, and so I didn't see the point in taking smaller 20 or 30 pound jumps on the deadlift when I could take bigger jumps and not tire myself out as much. And so for the second attempt, I took 302.5 or 667 pounds. And this one, there was definitely some lack of focus, because I was so ready to just get this pull over with to see if I was in a good position to take 705. And I walked out on the platform with my headphones still on, so I had to go back and take those off. Luckily they didn't scratch my attempt or anything, since I had stepped on the platform with it or anything, because I know sometimes they try and do stuff like that. But the weight moved super fast. It was definitely an easy rep. And I knew after doing this that 705 or 320 keys was definitely in reach. And so I told my coach after that I definitely wanted to go up to 320, because we had programmed, I think, 312.5 or 315 as my final attempt. And I knew that I wanted to take 320 to take the record. And so we did that. And a lot of this was just a hype lift. There was a lot of energy in the venue, and also just like with myself, and I can tell that my rep wasn't the most technically sound one. My base, like my feet were a lot wider than I usually do with my deadlifts, and I rushed my setup, but luckily the weight still moved, and it was definitely within my range. And I do still think I had some more in the tank. I could have squeezed out another 5, maybe even 10 pounds on the lift, but I definitely took what I needed to. I got the record, and it was successful. First meet, 735 keys, and I think overall it went pretty well.
I thought you were about to say 5 kilos or 10 kilos. No, I was about to say, what?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty much it for the meet recap. It went well. Like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, on Monday, me and Justin, maybe that was Tuesday, either way, me and Justin are competing in November at the Winter Wrecker. That's gonna be a ton of fun. We have a long off season until then, so a lot of big changes, and we have a lot of big plans as well for, I mean, what we're gonna do. So stick around. Roommate just came in clutch with the package. Shout out Nathan. Got the Fairlifes on deck. All 3 of them. But on that note, I'll catch y'all later. Like I said, this weekend we're lifting at Olympus with some of our homies back from Charlotte. So it's gonna be a fun time. That'll be in the next video. So yeah, until then, we'll catch y'all later.